Should you put on your resume why you left a job? It could be for a better opportunity. It could be because the company closed. It could be because there was a reduction in force or you relocated. Now, conventional wisdom has always said don't put any of that on your resume. Wait until you get an interview and you can talk about it. But is conventional wisdom correct? And could it be to your strategic advantage to put that information on your resume? Or are you actually hurting your chances? Hi, I'm Shelley Piedmont, a former recruiter turned career coach. And when we look at the question of putting the reason for departure on resumes, this is really not a yes or no question. Really, it should be nuanced because it really is going to depend upon your situation, why you left, and does it really help your candidacy or hurt your candidacy if you don't include this information. Hiring is a risky business. You're hiring a person you don't know, and you don't know how they're going to work out. So hiring teams want to reduce the risk that a person might be for their organization. So when they see, jobs one after another with short tenure, or there's big gaps, they feel that that's a higher risk. And when they don't have information about the reason for that risk, sometimes they will start making up reasons. And oftentimes they're what they think is happening and what the true reality is may be very different, and often it's not to your benefit. Really, the answer to this question is going to be, does putting this information on your resume make you less risky, or does it make you more risky? When you explain your departure, you really need to think of these questions. Will it make me look more hireable or less hireable? Will it make me look more risky or less risky? And does this information answer the questions about my career, or does it complicate it? You want to ask yourself these questions because it will determine what you do next. If you like this content, I always appreciate hitting that like button and subscribe to my channel. It really helps. So what are some situations where putting the reason for your departure on a resume could be helpful for you? Well, there's several of them. It could be helpful for you when you have been part of a layoff, and especially if you've only been with an organization for a short period of time, because we know that there have been a lot of layoffs, and we know that there have been, complete departments that have been consolidated in many organizations, and these have been very public. So your hiring team may be very aware of what's going on in the industry. And so if you put there was a reduction in force, they may not think anything of it. And especially if you have been with a company a short period of time, that will explain your departure, where if you didn't put anything on your resume, they could be making up reasons like you didn't perform well, or you didn't get along with the boss, or the commute was too long. Whatever they put in there may be not anything near the truth, and the truth will be way more palatable to them. Another situation where putting your departure on a resume may make strategic sense is if you relocated or you had a family health matter that you were taking care of. Those sort of things, people know that life happens and that this was a situation really maybe beyond your control. And so if you put that on a resume, it can allay fears that you are a job hopper. And the third one is if there was a closure of your business. When that happens, again, nothing you can do about it. You don't have a job. And so putting the business closed can be a way to make people understand that this was something beyond your control. Now, here are some situations where maybe it is best to not put anything about your departure on a resume. And the first one I remember very well from my time as a recruiter. And that is a resume that came to me that had for most of the jobs, reason for leaving, better opportunity, better opportunity, better opportunity. So instead of de-risking the situation, actually, this candidate increased the risk. And why was that? Because I sat there wondering, better opportunity, what could that be? Was it more money, more growth opportunity, a better commute, a boss she got along with? I don't know. But I was just trying to think because she said better opportunity. And then I was thinking, well, will this opportunity be a better opportunity for her? Since I could see that many of the jobs she was only in for a relatively short period of time. So would she come to my organization and then go somewhere else because of a better opportunity? So she added more risk when she didn't really need to do so. Another time when you don't want to talk about a departure is when you put something like mutually agreed upon. Okay, that's vague corporate speak, and that could mean a lot of things. So you are actually adding risk by adding that to your resume, because now the person that reads it is going, well, did this person not get along with the boss? Did they have performance issues? Something's going on here, and that's a little bit of a concern. Another thing you want to avoid putting on your resume about a departure is if there was anything to do with performance issues. You want to stay away from that because you have not given yourself the opportunity to even explain what happened, anything about that. So people are going to judge you based on that information. So that's why that situation, or anything to do with a rules violation, or even you didn't get along with your boss, those sorts of things you don't want to talk about in a resume. And if you get to the interview part, you want to be very strategic about how you answer a question about that, because you don't want to really talk that much about it. You want to move on to other things. If you decide to add information about your departure, here are some things to think about. The first thing is you want to keep it very brief. Don't go into long explanations about it. This is not the place to do it. So you can say something like relocated to Dallas, or you can say company was acquired, business consolidated. Keep it short. You just need to give the barest of information so that that employer knows what happened. The second thing is you want to be specific enough to be credible, but vague so you keep your professionalism. So as an example, with a reduction in force, you can say company acquired in August 2025, resulting in department downsizing, something like that. What you don't want to say is laid off because new VP decided to bring in their own team. No one needs to know that. And then the third thing is, where should you actually put this information? And there are different places where you could do this. If you have a overview of the company, and in some cases, in some resumes, you want to have like a little description about the company. So if that's the case, you could put it at the end of that, especially if there was an acquisition or the company closed or something like that, that actually was company-wide. So just put that right at the end. Oftentimes in a resume, you might have a sentence or two that just is an overview of the role, what the scope was for you. If that's the case, then at the end of that section, you might want to put a little bit of information about why you left. And the third area you could do that is in a bullet point. So let's say you had a project that was very important that you're highlighting on your resume, but maybe you didn't get to finish the project because you were, part of a downsizing. So you could put at the end of that bullet point, transitioned my work to leadership as a result of a layoff in, whatever the date is. So there's different ways to do that where you can nestle that information in there, not make a big deal about it, but if appropriate, provide additional context. If you've asked yourself the questions that I talked about earlier about whether putting this information is going to add risk or decrease risk, and you're not really sure, then what I suggest you do is do some A/B testing. So what does that mean? Well, that means make two versions of the resume. one with the explanation, one without the explanation, and then submit them to similar types of roles. The market will tell you which is going to actually make you a better candidate. So take that information, especially if you are on the fence and not quite sure if this will help or harm you. Try this, and this may give you the answer you are looking for. The bottom line is explaining your departure from a job should be based on a strategy that is best for your situation. This is not a you need to follow this rule, because honestly, in resumes, there are very few rules. It all should be based on the strategy that is best for you. So if it makes sense for you because it will make you a more competitive candidate and de-risk you, then put it on. If it doesn't make sense for your situation, it's going to heighten your risk, then yeah, leave it off. Do what makes sense for you. Your resume is a marketing document, and every word on it should make strategic sense for you.